Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're taking a look at the latest dumpster fire in the AAA gaming space. You guessed it, Redfall. I had originally planned to do a full review after finishing the entire game, but now that I've completed the first zone and realized there's a second open world area after that, I honestly don't know if I have the mental fortitude to spend another 10 to 15 hours on this game. So instead of a review, I want to go over some of my thoughts on Redfall in the larger context of what this means for Arkane as a studio moving forward, companies still chasing the looter shooter trend, and how the current gaming climate contributed to Redfall's poor reception. First off, I can't express enough just how much of a huge letdown this game is coming from Arkane. For the record, I have absolutely no issues with studios expanding their portfolios and developing games outside of their typical wheelhouse. But in the case of Redfall, it hasn't paid off at all. Redfall's premise could have easily been applied to a traditional Arkane-style game. A semi-open world, just one zone probably, with a much bigger focus on stealth and immersive sim-style decisions would have fit this setting perfectly. There could have been a smattering of different vampire hideouts you needed to infiltrate and clear out, with their own unique and interesting environments and objectives. Not just 2-minute missions where you fast travel to a location, kill a few enemies, and that's the end of that. An easy example of this would be a mission where you need to steal some ancient vampire artifact, and you can either sneak through the entire mission, steal it, and sneak back out, or choose to go in guns blazing and fight your way through a horde of enemies. Giving players different choices on how to approach each mission, like a typical Arkane-style game, would have suited Redfall perfectly in this context. You could also keep the unique mini-bosses and vampire god major bosses that already exist in Redfall, and make them actually interesting and hard to fight instead of something that you can kill in 30 seconds with the most basic gear. Having main and side quests that are actually interesting and with characters you could get attached to and care about would have gone a long way as well. In Redfall currently, you meet one character, do a mission or two for them, then they die, and no one even gives a shit. Your character or the other NPCs in the game. This is definitely not the style of storytelling that we are used to from Arkane. In addition to a more linear / semi-open world style of game, you could even keep the randomized vampire layers for equipment farming, roguelike replayability, whatever you want to call it. I actually thought this idea was pretty cool in Redfall, if it was included alongside more meaningful main and side story missions. I think one of the biggest questions about Redfall is what does this game mean for Arkane moving forward? It's obviously a black mark on their otherwise very good record. Is their next game going to be an auto-buy for many people like their previous titles were? For some, yes. For others, I suspect this will leave a bad taste in their mouth and could affect their outlook on Arkane's next title moving forward. A huge reason why Redfall fell flat was its chasing of the looter shooter trend. Whoever wanted this to be a looter shooter is way behind on the times. Not every game needs to be an always online, live service looter shooter. It would have been totally fine to keep some of the aspects that are in Redfall right now, but tweak them to better fit a more single-player driven experience. The game could have included a lot of the cool and unique weapons that it has now, stake launchers, flare guns, etc. But instead of having them be randomized loot that drops with meaningless traits, they could have been weapons that you unlock gradually through the game, with various upgrades you could unlock to suit your playstyle. But there's no reason to have these be farmable loot that serve no real purpose in the context of the broader game. You could even include different unlockable skins if you wanted to give players something else to chase after. Similarly, the skill trees in Redfall are entirely meaningless. Pretty much half of each tree is dedicated to co-op, which most players probably won't interact with in any meaningful capacity. There are also skills for stuff like increasing ammo capacity. Why? Shouldn't that be a backpack upgrade or something? It makes no sense to waste a skill point on something as meaningless as bumping up your ammo. Gear rarities and stat bonuses are also completely meaningless. Having plus X% headshot damage on the highest tier of gear is a perfect example of this. Finally, how are you going to have a co-op, live service, always online shooter with no matchmaking? Not even for vampire lairs? Even if the main game was single player, if you included vampire lairs as farmable dungeons, you would at least think to add matchmaking to those. Have the rest of the game be single player, and make those co-op. Then add gear that has co-op bonuses instead of skills, so players could have a single player loadout and a co-op loadout to switch between. Unfortunately, Redfall, like Suicide Squad and plenty of other recent releases, seems to have fallen victim to the mentality that having your game be a live service looter shooter is almost a requirement in the current gaming market, and I would love to see more studios shy away from this moving forward. Finally, I wanted to touch on the context of Redfall's release, which could help explain why it received such a harsh reception from critics and players alike. The fact of the matter is, Redfall is a bad video game, no matter what way you look at it. It has an uninteresting story, forgettable characters, bad gameplay, boring exploration, bland and empty open world areas, brain-dead enemy AI, laughably easy bosses, technical issues, and poor performance on consoles and PC. The game is just plain bad, no matter how you look at it. There isn't a single feature or part of the game that makes it worth the playtime, even on Game Pass. Now that we've covered the facts of Redfall's release, let's look at the context. Would the reviews of this game be so harsh if it was a AA game released for $50, or the first game released from a brand new studio, or not coming off the heels of Jedi Fallen Order's poor performance during its release window? Probably not. But all of that doesn't change the reality of the situation. This was a AAA video game release from Arkane Austin Studio, and players were charged $70, up to $100 for the collector's edition, if they didn't want to play it on Game Pass. This game never should have been released at all, but especially not as a full-price AAA title, and what was supposed to be one of Xbox's long-awaited first-party console sellers. All in all, I really wanted to enjoy Redfall. I really tried to enjoy this game, but after playing through roughly half of it, I just don't. Nothing about this product grabs me and keeps me wanting to play it. The gunplay isn't good enough to make me want to keep killing vampires. The story isn't interesting enough to keep me hooked on finding out the ending, and the gear isn't fun enough to make me want to keep farming for it. There's just nothing here to grab and keep your attention and make this game worth your time. If you do have Game Pass, downloading Redfall and trying it out for yourself is the only way I would ever feel comfortable encouraging someone to play the game. And even then, I frankly just don't think it's worth your hard drive space or your time. I absolutely cannot recommend paying full price for this product under any circumstances. It was previously stated that Redfall will receive the most post-launch support of any Arkane title ever, and Phil Spencer doubled down on this in a post-launch interview, citing Sea of Thieves as an example of an Xbox title that launched poorly, but eventually became a successful product. While I respect Phil's dedication to improving Redfall moving forward, unfortunately, I think the game just has too many core problems with its story, characters, open world, gameplay systems, and enemies, to the point that I seriously question if any amount of updates or patches can turn this into a product worth the full price of a AAA game release. I wish Arkane Austin, Bethesda, and Xbox all the best in righting this ship, but for many consumers, I think the damage is already done. But only time will tell. Those are my final thoughts on Redfall. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe for more gaming content. If you've played Redfall at all, let me know how you feel about the game in the comments below, and let's keep things civil. Thanks for watching. You're a real one, and I appreciate you. Catch you later, homies.